Imagine you're the world's strongest hero, who quite literally defeated pretty much all of the demon army all by himself. That's right, you're so strong it's theoretically impossible to defeat you, even with an army numbering in the hundreds of thousands. When the demon queen Echidna attacked the human world together with her elite four and a stupid number of demon soldiers, a few elites as well as a certain knight were chosen to stop the demon army right in their tracks. However, even though other elites were strong, the knight was just that much stronger than them. He massacred demons left and right. He was a literal menace. At one point, he decides to leave the other members of his party behind because they're factually inferior to him. And then he goes to destroy the entire demon army, including their four elites and the demon queen, all by himself. We're talking about Leo Demonheart. But the problem with Leo is that he was too powerful. In the end, despite the fact that he literally saved the human world, the humans had other ideas. They simply banished him from the kingdom for being so strong. That's right, folks, the greatest hero in the world gets fired. Leo now no longer has a home. He travels through the lands until one day when he overhears how the demons are putting a lot of effort into rebuilding their army. And so, Leo decides to get a job in the demon army. And just like that, this story begins. Cloaked from head to toe, he enters the main castle of the demon kingdom. It was ironic. Everywhere he sees, there are demons working strenuously to repair the damage that he himself had done to their army. And now, the very perpetrator is here, looking for a job. He enters the presence of Echidna and her four elite generals, and then finally takes off the cloak to reveal himself. As you may expect, Echidna and her generals are taken aback, though fortunately, he's not here to destroy them again. The man in question simply states that he wants a job in the demon army. He further goes on to show his resume, and explains his past achievements, such as the total destruction of the demon army, as well as the fact that he personally defeated Echidna in a one-on-one. And while he says that he has zero self-awareness of how some of what he said might be inappropriate. Anyways, Echidna was no pushover. She shows him the door and ruthlessly tells him to piss off. However, Leo already knows that if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. He continues to show statistical studies and research papers while explaining the fundamental fact that if he were to join them, they can easily repair the entire kingdom no problem. But his over-the-top, arrogant attitude keeps getting on her nerves, and so she lets her middle finger do all the talking. It was obvious that whatever the man tried to say, he couldn't win over the demon queen, at least for now. When the interview with her fails, he decides to sneak up on the four generals when Echidna is not with them, and literally begs them for some of their time. Alright guys, let's take a moment to go over the four generals. We have a diligent and beautiful succubus named Stena. She specializes in sorcery, an introverted assassin named Melnes, a dragon general named Edward, and lastly, there's a cute wolf girl named Lily. Leo defeated all of them in the past, so of course they're familiar with the extent of his ability. Though surprisingly, instead of hate or scorn, they commend Leo for his unparalleled talents. Both Edward and Melnes respect him for his warrior abilities. Stena was defeated in a magic duel, and so she admires his magical prowess. But the wolf girl, Lily, takes respect further up a notch and considers herself Leo's future wife. Well, this is because of the primal instinct of her species. Since she was knocked out by Leo, she now sees him as her mating partner. The meeting with the four generals drags on as Leo once again boasts about his accomplishments, but as he explains how he defeated each of them, Leo also commends their abilities and states that if things were to go wrong, he could have been defeated. Stena then asks Leo to cut to the chase and explain why he's here anyway. This is where Leo explains what happened when he returned to the kingdom after defeating Echidna. He was expecting cheers, gratitude, a warm welcome, but all he got were terrified stares, full of fear and scorn. Shortly after, a rumor started circulating that Leo is planning on becoming the next Demon King. Riots and parades broke out among the people as they demanded the king to banish Leo from the kingdom. Some even tried to assassinate him, but I bet you know how that went. Lastly, the king himself summons Leo. First, he appreciates Leo for protecting both the kingdom and the Philosopher's Stone, but then explains what the people want. Therefore, he has no choice but to exile him. This is where Leo goes through the 5 stages of grief. He wanders through the lands without any aim or purpose before deciding to go join the demon army. He simply thought that the demon army might be the only place where others can understand him, and so he spent all night preparing his resume and gathering studies so that he can make a satisfying case and land a job in the army. But you all know the rest. The generals all listened to his story and decided to give him a chance. They'll hire him without Echidna's knowledge so that he can produce some satisfying results before they all convince Echidna to hire him for good. He'll have to conceal his powers and also take on an alternate identity while he helps in rebuilding the army, and from the looks of it, things are pretty bad. So so bad that the important task of handling the logistics was assigned to Lily, who's basically a kid. Anyway, Leo begins helping out the demon army by adopting the identity of a random masked dark knight named Onyx. First, he solves the problem of replenishing the mana reactor. Apparently, Stania always had to deal with this task all by herself, since only her wavelength is compatible with the reactor. She's currently exhausted from using so much energy all day, every day. Fortunately, Leo takes care of the matter right away. Not only does he replenish it, he also makes it so magic wavelength is no longer a concern when it comes to the mana reactor. That's right, anyone with mana can now take care of the task. And once the matter is solved, Leo demands the kiss Stania promised if he's able to take care of the problem, but embarrasses her so much that she turns completely red. So, as it always is in the anime, she hits him instead of rewarding him with that sweet kiss. His next assignment is to do something about the shortage of food and other equipment throughout the lands. Unfortunately, the one behind logistics is Lily, and that's the problem. She's been telling everyone to just have fun instead of doing the work. And so Leo heads out to the territory of the dragon folk to help resolve things, since they are the ones who provide the army with food and other stuff. When he reaches the land, he's flabbergasted. It's a complete and utter mess. So much so that even a single shipment takes more than a week. He tells Lily about it to see if she has a good enough excuse, but as it turns out, Lily can't help it. She's just too immature for this. She does want to do better though. This is where Leo comes up with an ingenious plan to orchestrate a character development arc for Lily. He pretends that he got poisoned by a snake bite and instructs Lily to go and get some antidote herbs. Though, of course, it isn't as simple, since Leo had already planned on creating a few obstacles in her path, which she can't overcome unless she thinks astutely, and also works with other demons. Though it looks like Leo severely underestimated her. Lily embarks on the quest right away and starts overcoming the obstacles using a monstrous wolf transformation. Leo then disguises himself as an old man and shows up to give her a few logistical hints. But even that doesn't work as planned, since Lily ends up discovering the herbs all by herself in the end. However, he later notices that Lily benefits from the experience, even though it didn't work out as planned. He realizes that as long as Lily is properly told what to do, she can make things work. That's right, all this time he was underestimating Lily. From there on out, things start working smoothly, and even Echidna is impressed by the sudden surge of improvement when it comes to the logistics. She decides to personally meet this black knight named Onyx to reward him for his efforts. The dinner takes place, and at one point, she even takes off his helmet, but Leo neatly changed his face right when his helmet was getting removed, and now that he was completely in the safe zone, he asks Echidna about why she rejected the hero Leo from joining the army. This question annoys her, but she gives a surprisingly thorough reason. As it turns out, the main reason Echidna invaded the human kingdom is because of the Philosopher's Stone, but Leo didn't even let her get close to it. This statement causes Leo to think about why she'd want the stone, especially since as far as he's concerned, the power of the stone is greatly exaggerated by the masses. However, Echidna had a noble reason for doing so. She explains that the demon kingdom is currently a wasteland. There's a pollution and awful lack of resources, which is why the demons often end up fighting each other just to survive another day. But if she can get her hands on the Philosopher's Stone, she can make their land fertile again, which will help stop the infighting among the demons, and there will be no more conflicts. She knows that the humans would never just hand it over to her, which is why she had no choice but to engage in a war. But as Leo recalls, demons purposefully held back in the war in order to not kill anybody. Echidna then goes on to state that even though she doesn't like Leo for standing in her way, she still understands that it was his job to protect the humans, and so she doesn't hold it against him. But that doesn't mean she can just let him join. When she's done talking, she asks Onyx about why he decided to join the army, since she knows that he's a human. Now, Leo was pretty much going to reveal the truth in the crux of the moment, but quite conveniently, Stania and Lily pop up right then and state that Melness has gone on a journey, while Edward is contemplating suicide. Things were going south, so they split the tasks. Echidna and the others attempt to deal with what's going on with Edward, while Leo immediately sets out to see what Melness is up to. It doesn't take him long to find him, but when Leo asks him what happened, Melness's reasons for leaving are surprisingly crude, but understandable. In 3 days, he was going to start interviewing demons for positions in the army, but his social anxiety made him freak out, which is why he simply left. Though after sharing his reasons, he asks Leo to sell him a course on communication skills. Leo takes up the challenge and they return to the castle. Echidna's told about the situation, and as you can expect from a beautiful and mature leader, she also understands Melness' situation perfectly. Edward, on the other hand, was an even more difficult case. He'd been trying to kill himself, but his dragon skin made it impossible for a blade to break through, which gives him even more depression. Thankfully, his daughter, named Julieta, is looking after him to make sure he doesn't try anything more insane. Leo, on the other hand, makes Melness dress as a waitress to serve soldiers in the Good Hall. Melness is left with no choice but to communicate with the soldiers since there was no other way to go about it. Surprisingly, Leo reveals he was once a complete sociopath, but as time went by, he learned. Anyways, when Melness is dealing with a group of horny werewolves, they start touching his posterior. This gets on his nerves, and so he instantly gives them a lesson on discipline and respect using force. All of these experiences improved his communication skills a lot. Later, Melness and Leo engage in a conversation where he asks Leo about the real reason why he joined the demon army, since he could tell that Leo's not being honest. This is where Melness reveals a bit more about himself. He's actually a half-human, half-demon, who was trafficked through his childhood. This led him to developing an insane hatred for the human race. When Echidna started recruiting for the army, he decided to join so that he could ruthlessly destroy as many humans as he could. But when he learns that Echidna wasn't really killing humans, he was pretty disappointed. He wondered if he should just assassinate her and take over the army, but he was defeated by Leo before acting upon his plan. Not to mention, Leo changed him by telling him to experience the world for fun and not as an assassin. Leo hears all of this story and then decides to drop some lore bombs as well. What nobody realizes is that he's actually thousands of years old. He came into existence in modern-day Tokyo back when magic still used to be a myth, until one day when a portal breach resulted in an invasion from the demons. It was a catastrophic tragedy of the highest scale. During those tough times, the scientists all worked together to genetically engineer 12 bioweapons, which came to be known as Demon Hearts, and Leo just so happens to be one of them, although the only one who has survived for thousands of years is himself, which is why he's been protecting humans for thousands of years. Even when civilization drifted back to the medieval ages, he just kept protecting them from everything. Then finally, Leo reveals that when the humans banished him from their lands, it made him happy. All this time he was so bored and tired of fighting. His immortal existence was a curse. He could never have fun since everything was so boring and easy for him. But the idea of joining the demon army, that excited him. He wondered if he could finally experience a change of pace. Melness was listening to Leo with great concentration, and he was responding without intervening. Leo notices that and comments how he's already a good communicator. Following this, Leo learns more about what's going on with Edward. His daughter, Julieta, tells him that her father receives intense psychological damage whenever his troops lose in a battle. Leo can more or less understand what's going on. Since Edward was born with incredible gifts as a warrior, he lacks the ability to understand the simple fact that there are others who may not be as gifted as him, which is why when his troops lose, he starts blaming himself for not being a good enough leader. This got even worse after he lost to Leo. However, Leo reassures Julieta and Echidna that he'll help Edward recover. Meanwhile, Melness explains Leo's past to Stena and Lily, but it doesn't stop them from putting their trust in him. Leo then learns that a few machine weapons from the age of technology called Phantom 9s are discovered in the surroundings, and so he decides to use one of them to help Edward understand that defeat isn't always his or his soldiers' fault. Just like that, Edward faces off against a Phantom 9. The complexity of the battle dynamics overwhelm Edward, but he almost defeats it thanks to Leo's instructions. However, the Phantom 9 was no joke. When it foresees its own defeat, he calls in the other boys to gang up on Edward. This is where Edward realizes that he can't judge his soldiers against his own standards, since he himself is also required assistance against this adversary which he couldn't defeat alone. He then also apologizes to his troops. While Echidna expresses how destroying those robots was a lot of fun. What do you know? Even the Demon Queen needs a stress reliever sometimes. Now Black Knight Onyx gets a promotion for doing so much good work ever since he joined, and so Leo decides to reveal his identity soon enough. But before that, he comes across one of Echidna's favorite books. It's a book about a demon named Ibrad, who's renowned as the Joiner of Hands. Leo recalls that he actually had met Ibrad in the past. It was during the year 2060, when Ibrad stepped onto Earth as an immigrant looking for better opportunities. But it was a series of misunderstandings that led to a war between humans and demons. Leo crosses paths with him soon after, where he tells Leo that once this war is over, he'd have no purpose, and he'd be unneeded by the humans, and so he'll have to continue living for an indefinite period of time, all alone. He didn't understand what the demon stoic meant at that time, but now he does. He remembers how Elbard made him promise that he'll find a way to enjoy life after humans no longer need him. From here on out, things take quite a dramatic turn. Leo tells Echidna the truth about the Philosopher's Stone, and how it's basically just a highly advanced engine that can provide an unlimited amount of energy using a black hole, which is why it won't be any of use when it comes to fertilizing the lands again, but it is still quite useful. Though to make matters more interesting, she tells him how there are actually 2 stones in existence. If she doesn't want a conflict with the humans, she can just go after the second one. And just as she was processing all of this, he reveals his true identity to her. Echidna doesn't just accept this at first and goes into a light frenzy as the 4 generals try to calm her down and explain everything. But once she does calm down, they all set out to get the second Philosopher's Stone together with Leo. They enter a region of snowy mountains, and this is where he reveals how the stones require a user guide. Hearing this, Echidna declares that she'll find the guide and then make peace with humans by activating both stones. It was obvious that she still didn't quite understand what the stones were, and so an argument breaks out. Both of them suddenly engage in a snowball fight. The generals feel reassured since Echidna was getting along with Leo, but then he gets closer to her and silently tells her that he's been programmed to save humanity. If he can no longer do that, he'll go insane and purposefully orchestrate wars just so he can keep saving the humans. Furthermore, the stones were actually power sources for the demon hearts. Therefore, the second stone exists within him as his heart. Hence, there's no other way to go about it. Either they all work together to rip out his heart, bring prosperity to the demon kingdom, and make peace with the humans, or Leo himself goes and destroys all of humanity, while the demon kingdom will stay poor. He'll continue to attack and save humanity. He doesn't have the ability to go against his program, which is why either he dies or he kills all of humanity, so that there's no one left for him to protect. By saying this, Leo makes it absolutely clear that he wants them to kill him, and for that reason, he starts attacking Echidna and the others, and exclaims that he's tired of protecting humans for thousands of years and simply wants to die. Edward is heavily injured while trying to protect Stena, and when Lily tries to talk to Leo, she's ruthlessly attacked as well. Leo was not playing around, and the intensity of his attacks were severe enough to cause them serious damage. They may all die at this rate. And so, left with no choice, they all decide to fight with the intention to kill Leo. But intention wasn't enough to win against Leo. They don't even know the full extent of his abilities since they've been accumulating ever since he came into existence. He can copy and improve any of their attacks or defense, and he can do it just like that. Melnus jumps at him while stating how Leo has been lying all this time. All he wants is peace, but Leo just freezes Melnus before he could use any of those communication skills. Lily transforms to attack but doesn't last more than a moment. Echidna then decides to bet everything on a single powerful spell that she inherited from her father. It'll render all of Leo's abilities useless for a moment, and they'll use that as an opportunity to strike him down. However, since Edward, Melnus, and Lily were down, only Stena is left to keep Leo, and she almost manages to do that, but gets defeated right before Echidna could unleash the spell. Even so, he neither dodges nor counters it. Leo simply thanks Echidna and bears the full weight of the spell as his life flashes before his eyes. Over the years, he came to the realization that the only way out of this cycle is for him to die, but he also wanted someone else to inherit his stone so that they can put it to good use. And during the war with Echidna, he realized that she's the person he's been looking for. From there on out, he defeated her and her army, and then joined the army so that he can learn more about her and her fellows. Now it's only befitting that she has his life, and in doing so, she'll also finally save him. Echidna notices the happiness in his eyes as she orders the 4 generals to kill him while he's powerless. This kickstarts a time limit. They only have 300 seconds to take out his stone, otherwise it would die with him. In those drifting moments, Echidna asks if he has any regrets, but Leo just apologizes for causing trouble and says nothing more. Hearing this, she gets closer in order to remove the stone, but right then, in that very moment, an intrinsic hope for the future causes her to change her mind. She gets up and declares that Leo has passed the probation period, and so she wants to formally hire him as their ambassador to the human world. This wasn't very good news for Leo, and so he starts begging her to please, just let him die for good. But then we have a brief therapy session where Stena's interrogation leads to an important realization about Leo's evolution. Since he contemplated destroying humans, he's already expanded way past his original program. She then tells him to persist and evolve past the order to protect humans that has plagued him for the past 3,000 years. Leo was skeptical, but he gives it a shot, and surprisingly, it succeeds. He evolves so much that he's fully capable of ignoring his program, and then happily agrees to becoming the ambassador for Echidna. Later, when he's talking to Echidna back at the castle, she wonders if he regrets losing the only chance he'll ever have of dying. But Leo's like, who cares? As long as he gets to help her, he's happy. This results in plenty of romantic tension between them, but they're suddenly interrupted by Julieta, who not only catches them almost doing the act, but also reveals there's a stupid load of work that demands their immediate attention. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.